Sarah Miller, a 32-year-old financial advisor based in Chicago, cultivated her life around the small business ethos instilled during her upbringing in Boston. Yet, nothing could have prepared her for the stark reality delivered by a formal letter from her father. The paper felt fragile in her grip as she absorbed the unyielding sentences. A declaration uninviting her from the family's annual reunion and effectively severing their connection. Her sole reply, a terse two-word text, understood, belied the internal tempest she wrestled to contain. Little did her father grasp that this brief communication would become the catalyst for upheaval, a chain reaction destined to profoundly impact their family foundation. This is the chronicle of Sarah Miller's confrontation with familial expectations and the unexpected power unearthed when forced to defend her own trajectory. Her journey highlights the profound consequences that can arise from quiet defiance and the courage required to prioritize self-worth over conditional acceptance. If you've ever navigated complex family dynamics where standing firm felt necessary, her experience may offer a resonant perspective. Sarah's formative years in Boston were anchored by Miller's Hardware, the local store initiated by her grandfather and subsequently expanded by her father, Thomas. From her earliest ability to tally stock, her father involved her in the business, requiring weekend and summer work and imparting lessons from the operation he so proudly nurtured. Their home often carried the scent of timber, a result of her father bringing back material samples. Her mother, Eleanor, embodied the role of a supportive spouse, rarely questioning her husband's directives, even when his pronouncements were sharp or his demands unyielding. She managed the household while he orchestrated their lives, a dynamic that seemingly functioned for them but felt restrictive to Sarah. Her older brother, Michael, was the favored son, embracing the hardware venture with an intensity mirroring their father's. 5 years Sarah's senior, he was marked as the future leader, immersing himself in every facet from inventory to customer engagement. James, her younger brother by 3 years, occupied a less defined space within the family structure. He also worked in the business, but lacked Michael's fervor. James possessed artistic aptitudes that their father largely disregarded, assigning him to warehouse duties to prevent time being wasted on creative pursuits. Sarah, the middle child, displayed an early proficiency with numbers, a talent her father initially celebrated. By 12, she was assisting with the store's accounting, dedicating weekends to organizing receipts and balancing ledgers while her peers were at the mall. Her father would beam when she identified discrepancies or proposed more efficient processes, affectionately calling her "my little accountant" and tousling her hair. However, his approval remained contingent on her applying these skills exclusively for Miller's Hardware. As she entered high school, her father frequently discussed his vision of expanding the business beyond their single location. He would declare, "One day, Sarah, we'll have Miller's Hardware all across New England," gesturing grandly, "You'll manage the books for all of them." The underlying message was consistently apparent. Her purpose was intrinsically linked to serving the family enterprise. When she announced her intention to study finance at Northwestern University in Chicago, the atmosphere at home grew noticeably cooler. Her father challenged her, "What's wrong with Boston University? You can live at home, save money, and still work weekends at the store." No explanation regarding Northwestern's superior finance program seemed to penetrate. In his perception, she was abandoning the established family trajectory. The day she departed for college, her father drove her to the airport in silence, punctuated only by his parting words, "I hope you know what you're throwing away." Her mother's tearful goodbye was accompanied by a whispered assurance, "He'll come around." He largely did not. Upon graduating with academic honors, Sarah secured a position at a respected financial advisory firm in Chicago. During those initial years of her career, the geographical distance between Boston and Chicago seemed to amplify the emotional gulf. Weekly conversations with her mother became her primary connection to family news, although her mother was cautious about what she shared when her father was within earshot. Michael married his high school sweetheart and took on the role of store manager. James remained in his warehouse position, his artistic interests relegated to weekend hobbies. Meanwhile, Sarah diligently advanced her career, becoming one of the youngest senior financial advisors at her firm. Her interactions with her father were mainly limited to brief, constrained exchanges during her biannual visits or when he occasionally took the phone from her mother during their weekly calls. He would inquire about her job as if it were a temporary deviation before steering the conversation back to her supposed real role within the family business. The irony was not lost on her. She was earning significantly more in Chicago than the family store generated in profit. Yet, acknowledging her professional success would necessitate conceding she had made a valid choice. 2 years prior, when the family business required refinancing for a substantial expansion, her father reluctantly sought her professional expertise. Sarah facilitated securing a more favorable loan than they could have obtained independently, featuring lower interest rates and improved terms. A crucial element of this arrangement was her requirement to co-sign as a guarantor, given the business's insufficient collateral. Her father framed this as her long-awaited contribution to the family, rather than recognizing the considerable financial exposure it represented for her. Nevertheless, she signed, motivated by a desire, despite everything, to see her family's venture flourish. That signature, binding her to a $5 million loan guarantee, would later become an unexpected source of leverage. The previous month, Sarah had begun making arrangements for her annual journey home for the Miller family reunion. This tradition united not just the immediate family, but a wider circle of cousins, aunts, uncles, and surviving relatives of her grandfather. Having missed the previous year's gathering due to a work commitment, she was determined to attend this one. She even prepared a comprehensive financial analysis of the business expansion, complete with recommendations for optimizing the new locations. Her suitcase was partially packed when the certified letter arrived, requiring her signature for delivery. The act of signing for it felt ominous. The return address indicated her parents' Boston residence. Why a signature confirmation for something sent just 3 days after their last phone conversation? The thick, cream-colored envelope contained a single sheet of her father's preferred formal stationery, the kind reserved for significant business correspondence. His precise handwriting filled the page in blue ink. "Dear Sarah," it began with chilling formality. "After much consideration, the family has decided it would be best if you did not attend this year's reunion." Her hands trembled as she continued reading. "Your lifestyle choices and big city values have increasingly diverged from the core principles that the Miller family holds dear. Your close association with individuals like your colleague David represents values incompatible with our family's beliefs." David was Sarah's gay friend and co-worker who had appeared in some of her social media posts. The letter escalated, becoming more cutting with each sentence. "At 32, your stubborn refusal to settle down and start a family, as both your brothers have done, shows a selfishness and deviation from family tradition that we find troubling. We are concerned about your influence on the younger cousins and have decided to protect the family from further exposure to your choices." The final paragraph delivered a decisive blow. "Therefore, we are severing family ties until such time as you reconsider your path. Do not attempt to contact us or attend family functions. Your mother supports this decision. We will be informing extended family of this situation. Regards, Thomas Miller." Not Love Dad or even Dad. He had signed his complete name, as though she were a business contact whose association was being terminated. Sarah sank onto her sofa, the letter slipping from her grasp. Tears welled in her eyes as disbelief yielded to a crushing ache in her chest. How could he enact this? And how could her mother endorse it? She immediately attempted to call her mother's cell phone, but the call went directly to voicemail. She sent texts to both brothers. "Did you know about this letter from Dad?" The messages showed as delivered and read, but neither sibling replied. Desperate for some clarity, she checked social media. There, she discovered recent posts from a cousin's account, photographs of her parents, brothers, and their families sharing a meal at her parents' house. Pre-reunion dinner with the Millers, read the caption, posted only an hour earlier. In that instant, something within Sarah hardened. They were together, at that very moment, likely discussing her reaction to being ostracized from her own family. Had they been planning this for weeks? Months? Had they shared a laugh about it over dinner? She wiped away her tears, took a steadying breath, and opened her phone. To her father's personal cell number, she typed a single-word reply, "Understood." Then, she walked to her home office and retrieved the file containing all the loan documentation for the family business expansion. Reviewing the paperwork, detailing her role as guarantor for $5 million in debt, a strategy began to solidify. She may have been groomed to be the family's accountant, but she had evolved into something far more formidable and potentially dangerous when provoked: a financial strategist with seemingly nothing left to lose. The morning after receiving her father's correspondence, Sarah contacted her friend Jennifer, an expert in commercial contract law. "Can you meet me for coffee?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady. "It's urgent." Over lattes, she presented the loan documents and explained the situation, including the letter. Jennifer's eyes widened as she read the father's words. "He actually put this in writing? And you're still guaranteeing their business loan?" She shook her head in disbelief. "Sarah, you possess every legal right to remove yourself as guarantor. The bank will need to notify all parties, but you are under no obligation to remain tied to their debt after receiving this kind of treatment." Jennifer indicated specific sections in the loan agreement. "This clause here allows for withdrawal of guarantors with 30 days' notice, although the bank will probably implement immediate protective measures once informed." Back at her apartment, Sarah spread out all the financial records related to the family business. The picture that emerged was concerning. Since she had assisted them in securing the expansion loan, they had leveraged it to launch 2 new locations and incurred additional debt for inventory. Their cash flow was strained, with a significant portion of their operating capital reliant on the credit line she had helped establish. They were far more dependent on her financial backing than they had disclosed. Her father had downplayed their expansion debt during their conversations, presenting a significantly more optimistic outlook than these figures revealed. Sarah paced her apartment that night, wrestling with her impending decision. Revoking her guarantee would likely trigger a credit freeze, while the bank reevaluated the risk. Construction on their 3rd new location would halt. Payments to vendors might be delayed. It held the potential to harm not just her father, but also her brothers and their families, and the employees who relied on Miller's hardware for their livelihood. Was she truly prepared to initiate this level of disruption? Around 3 in the morning, she recalled a piece of advice from her first finance professor. The most effective financial decisions are driven by logic, not emotion. Her father had rendered his decision coldly, formally, without regard for the emotional devastation it would inflict. Perhaps it was time she responded in kind. At 9, the following morning, she contacted the loan officer at Boston First National, who had managed the original financing. "Miller, this is unexpected," Mr. Watkins remarked. "Is everything proceeding smoothly with the expansion?" "There has been a shift in my relationship with the family business," she replied professionally. "I need to withdraw myself as guarantor on the Miller's hardware loan, effective immediately. I understand there is a provision for this in Section 12B of our agreement." His sharp intake of breath conveyed everything. "Ms. Miller," he advised, "I must inform you that this action will necessitate an automatic review of the loan structure. Given the magnitude of financing involved, The bank will likely suspend access to remaining funds until a new guarantor can be secured or additional collateral is provided. I understand completely, Mr. Watkins, she confirmed. I will come to your Boston branch tomorrow to sign any necessary paperwork. That afternoon, she booked a morning flight to Boston and reserved a hotel near the bank's principal branch. She requested a personal day from work, explaining to her supervisor that she needed to address an urgent family financial matter. He offered sympathetic understanding, unaware of the true purpose of her trip. That evening at 7, she powered off her phone. She needed one night of respite before the storm she was about to unleash. Her friends, David and Mia, took her to dinner, providing distraction and support, though they were not privy to all the details. Whatever you're facing, you've got this, Mia stated, raising her glass in a toast. To setting boundaries, David added with a knowing look. Sarah managed a small smile. To consequences, she responded, clinking glasses. The following morning in Boston, she signed the documents with Mr. Watkins, who still appeared concerned. The system will automatically notify all parties on the loan, he reminded her. You should anticipate some immediate responses. His diplomatic understatement nearly elicited a laugh from her. She nodded, expressed her gratitude for his assistance, and proceeded directly back to the airport. She kept her phone off during the return flight to Chicago. Only upon her safe arrival back at her apartment did she finally power it on. The flood of notification sounds began instantly, continuing for nearly a full minute. 78 missed calls from her mother, 35 from her father, 23 from Michael, 12 from James, 46 text messages, 32 emails, including 9 marked urgent from her father. The family, who had effectively severed ties with her just 24 hours earlier, was now desperate for contact. She began by listening to her father's voicemails, hearing them transform from confusion to outright panic. The initial messages were accusatory. Sarah, what the hell have you done? Call me back immediately. By the 10th message, his tone had shifted dramatically. Sarah, please, we need to discuss this. The bank has frozen all our accounts. We can't access our credit line. Call me as soon as you get this. The 20th message contained an emotion she had never before detected from her father. Desperation. Sarah, I'm begging you. Whatever message you're trying to send, we've received it. This is going to dismantle everything we've built. Please call back. Her mother's messages were heart-wrenching, but solidified Sarah's resolve. The first few were tearful. Honey, what's happening? Your father is beside himself. Please call us. Later messages revealed her mother had not been fully informed. Sarah, I just saw the letter your father sent. I didn't know. Please call me on my cell, not the house phone. Her brother's messages followed predictable patterns. Michael, always his father's staunchest ally, sounded angry and accusatory. How could you inflict this upon the family? We stand to lose everything because of your self-centeredness. James, the more conciliatory sibling, sounded conflicted. Sis, I'm unsure what transpired between you and Dad, but surely there's a way to resolve this without collapsing the business. Please call me. The emails provided a more comprehensive picture of the disruption she had unleashed. The bank had not only frozen access to the remaining credit line, but had also issued formal notice, requiring them to secure a new guarantor within 30 days, or provide additional collateral valued at a minimum of $2 million. Construction contractors for the third store location had ceased work when their scheduled payment failed to process. Suppliers were making calls regarding pending orders. Her father had summoned an urgent family meeting at his home, demanding everyone's presence to address Sarah's betrayal. According to Michael's furious email, her father had informed the extended family that she had maliciously sabotaged the business because they would not endorse her lifestyle choices. The ultimatum arrived in her father's final email that night. If you fail to call back by noon tomorrow to rectify this situation you've created, you are permanently disowned from this family. I trust your point was worth destroying your family's legacy. Sarah slept surprisingly soundly that night. In the morning, she received a text from her cousin Allison. Just so you're aware, Uncle Thomas showed everyone a different letter than the one he actually sent you. The one he displayed at the meeting merely stated they were concerned about your working too hard and suggested you take a break from family obligations. Something feels off. Call me if you need an ally. This message corroborated her suspicion. Her father was manipulating the narrative, concealing his harshness while portraying her as the antagonist. Rather than contact anyone directly, she composed a single email addressed to her father, mother, and brothers, copying her Aunt Susan, her father's sister, who had consistently demonstrated fairness. The subject line was concise. Regarding the Miller's hardware loan guarantee, the body contained just 2 paragraphs. I am attaching a scanned copy of the letter I received from Dad on Miller family letterhead. This letter explicitly severed family ties with me and instructed me not to contact anyone in the family or attend any family functions. As a non-family member, according to this letter, it would be inappropriate for me to continue guaranteeing the family business loan. I have therefore exercised my legal right to remove myself as guarantor. She attached the scanned letter and sent it. Then she turned off her phone again and went to work. For 3 full days, silence followed. The lack of communication felt more unsettling than the previous barrage of messages. She speculated if they were strategizing, searching for alternative financing, or perhaps finally contemplating the repercussions of her father's actions. She later discovered they had been engaged in all 3, without success. Her Aunt Susan had instigated a family confrontation after witnessing the contents of the actual letter. Her mother had temporarily relocated to her grandmother's house, and her father had faced rejection from 4 different banks in his frantic search for new financing. The business was beginning to suffer, and the assignment of blame was shifting from Sarah to its rightful source. 5 days after sending her email, Sarah was heating up leftover pad thai for dinner when her doorbell rang. Expecting no one, she checked the peephole before opening. Her heart momentarily paused. Standing in the hallway was her entire immediate family. Her father, grim but resolute. Her mother, with eyes showing traces of recent tears. Michael, arms defensively folded. And James, standing slightly behind them, shifting uncomfortably. For a moment, she contemplated feigning absence, but they had clearly traveled to Chicago specifically to see her. This confrontation was unavoidable. She composed herself and opened the door. "May we enter?" her father inquired stiffly, as if addressing a business competitor. Sarah stepped aside silently, allowing them to file into her living room. No one took a seat. Her father extracted a folded document from his jacket pocket. "Before we discuss anything else, we need you to sign this to reinstate your guarantee on the loan." His directness was astonishing. No apology, no acknowledgement of the letter, merely a demand. A sense of calm settled over Sarah, a feeling she had never before experienced in his presence. "No," she stated simply. "I will not be signing anything tonight." Color rose in her father's face. "Do you comprehend the extent of your actions? Construction has completely stopped. We were forced to cancel orders totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. Your brothers could lose their homes if the business collapses." Sarah walked to her desk and retrieved the letter, still in its original envelope. "Do you comprehend the extent of your actions?" She placed it on the coffee table between them. "You deliberately excluded me from the family. You instructed me not to contact any of you. You informed me that you were severing family ties. Those were your precise words." Her mother gasped, bringing a hand to her mouth. She turned to her father. "Thomas, you claimed you merely asked her to take a break from family gatherings because of her work schedule. You presented us with an entirely different letter." Her father's expression flickered between irritation and discomfort. "I was safeguarding family values," he insisted. "She is aware of what she has been promoting on her social media. That friend of hers openly displaying his lifestyle. Her refusal to establish a family, the liberal political views. Michael picked up the letter and read it, his expression darkening. Dad, this extends far beyond asking her to temper her social media activity. You disowned her. He turned to Sarah. Though that doesn't justify destroying the business that provides for all our families. I did not destroy anything, Sarah responded evenly. I simply withdrew my financial support from individuals who explicitly declared they wanted nothing to do with me. The business was stable before the expansion. Dad overextended based on my guarantee without ever acknowledging how heavily he relied on me. James, who had remained silent until this point, finally spoke. She makes a valid point, Dad. You cannot tell someone they are no longer part of the family and simultaneously expect them to bear financial responsibility for the family business. Her father's face deepened in color. So this is retaliation? Is that it? Causing hardship for all of us because your feelings were hurt? Something within Sarah broke free. 20 years of seeking approval, of stifling criticism, of minimizing herself to conform to his expectations. It all crystallized into perfect clarity. This is not about retribution. It is about respect. You have never genuinely respected my choices, my career, or my identity outside of what you wished me to be. You exploit my financial expertise when it serves your purpose while diminishing my career when it doesn't. You accepted my guarantee on a $5 million loan while simultaneously deciding I was not worthy of being part of the family. That is not the nature of respect. That is not the nature of family. Silence descended upon the room. Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength. You do not possess the authority to dictate the terms of my life and simultaneously profit from my accomplishments. You do not get to selectively value the aspects of me that are useful while discarding the rest. And you most certainly do not get to misrepresent your actions to the entire family and cast me as the perpetrator. To her astonishment, her mother stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. She is correct, Thomas. For years, I have observed your attempts to control our children's lives, particularly Sarah's. You resented her success because it did not align with your blueprint. That letter was cruel, and I would never have endorsed it if you had shown me what you actually wrote. Her father appeared genuinely taken aback by his wife's unexpected defiance. Michael still seemed torn between familial loyalty and the unsettling reality of the letter's contents. James moved to stand symbolically between his father and Sarah, a peacemaker finding his courage. So, what is the path forward now? He asked. Sarah looked directly at her father. I require a sincere apology and a commitment to honoring my life choices. I require acknowledgement of my intrinsic worth beyond what I can contribute to Miller's hardware. I require treatment as an equal adult, not a wayward child. If these conditions are met, we can discuss the loan situation. If not, you will need to identify another solution. Her father's expression hardened. He snatched the paperwork from the table. I built that business from a single store into its current state. I will locate another avenue. I do not require your charity or your stipulations. He stormed towards the door. Thomas, wait, her mother called. But he was already in the hallway. She appeared conflicted, then made a decision that seemed to surprise even herself. I will speak with him, but I am remaining in Chicago tonight. We need to converse, Sarah. Michael followed his father, giving Sarah one last conflicted glance. But James remained behind. Can I stay on your couch, sis? I believe we have a great deal to catch up on. For the first time in days, Sarah felt a flicker of optimism. The weeks subsequent to the confrontation were remarkably quiet. Her mother extended her stay in Chicago for 2 days, during which they engaged in the most candid conversations of their adult lives. She returned to Boston, not to her parents' residence, but to her grandmother's, a quiet declaration of independence that surprised the extended family. James and Sarah reconnected in a manner they hadn't since childhood, with him finally confiding his dissatisfaction with his assigned role in the family business and his aspiration to pursue his artistic talents. Her father maintained a period of total silence, although her mother kept her informed about the increasingly dire business circumstances. Three banks had refused to refinance the loan without Sarah's guarantee. Construction remained suspended on the third location, and operations had been scaled back at the newest store to conserve capital. Michael was caught in the middle, loyal to his father, but increasingly anxious about the business that supported his own family. 2 weeks after the confrontation in Chicago, Sarah received a promotion at work, becoming the youngest division director in her firm's history. The irony that her most significant professional achievement coincided with her most profound family crisis was not lost on her. It reinforced a truth she had always understood but struggled to embrace. Her chosen path, while diverging from her father's plans, possessed intrinsic validity and value. Through industry contacts, she learned that her father had approached 2 additional banks with increasingly desperate terms, offering personal assets as collateral at unfavorable rates. Each rejection pushed the business closer to a financial precipice. The deadline for the loan review was approaching, and without a resolution, the bank would call in the remaining debt, potentially forcing a sale of business assets. Despite everything, Sarah did not wish to see her family's legacy dismantled or her brother's livelihoods jeopardized. Her fundamental desire was for recognition and respect. The turning point arrived unexpectedly. Her mother and James orchestrated what they termed a family business intervention at a neutral restaurant in Boston. Sarah flew in for the meeting, mentally prepared for another confrontation. What she was not prepared for was seeing her father looking defeated. His face bore new lines, and for the first time in her memory, his shoulders were slumped. Her mother had persuaded him to attend by making it unequivocally clear that without a resolution, Miller's Hardware would not survive the month. The initial 15 minutes were marked by painful awkwardness. Her father sat rigidly, largely avoiding eye contact. Michael repeatedly checked his phone, feigning urgent business matters. Only James and her mother attempted to initiate normal conversation. Finally, her mother gently tapped her water glass with a spoon. "We are assembled here to rescue the family and the business," she stated firmly. "No more posturing, no more pride, no more ultimatums from anyone." She nodded towards James, who distributed folders containing a complete financial overview of Miller's Hardware. "I've been collaborating with the accountant," he explained. "This is the unfiltered reality of our current standing." The figures were even more grim than Sarah had anticipated. Without access to the full credit line, they were barely managing payroll. Relationships with vendors were strained. The construction company for the third location was contemplating legal action over the halted payment. The bank had imposed a firm deadline of the following Friday to resolve the guarantor's situation. Her father stared at the documents, then finally spoke. "I was mistaken." His voice was so subdued, she almost asked him to repeat it. He cleared his throat and looked up at her. "I was mistaken to send that letter. I was mistaken to attempt to dictate your life. I was mistaken to take your support for granted while dismissing your choices." It was the first genuine apology she had ever received from him. The words seemed physically difficult for him to utter, which paradoxically lent them greater significance. "I was afraid," he continued after a pause, "afraid of losing the daughter I believed I knew, afraid of change, afraid that your life made mine appear small and limited. It felt simpler to push you away than to admit I did not comprehend your world." The restaurant seemed to recede as this unprecedented moment of vulnerability unfolded. Her father, the seemingly unyielding patriarch, was acknowledging his fears and errors. "I do not expect you to guarantee the loan again. You are correct that actions carry consequences, but I felt compelled to express this to you regardless of your decision." The silence that followed felt sacred, somehow holding within it decades of complex family dynamics and the potential for transformation. "I do not wish for the business to fail," Sarah finally said, "But I cannot revert to the previous state of affairs. If I assist with this situation, fundamental changes are necessary." They spend the next 2 hours delineating a new structure for the family business. James would assume a management role better aligned with his strengths in design and marketing. Michael would continue overseeing operations, but with increased autonomy. Her father would transition to an advisory capacity over the subsequent 2 years, relinquishing his tight control. Crucially, Sarah would engage as a formal business consultant. Her expertise recognized and appropriately compensated, rather than merely a passive guarantor. Her father visibly struggled with these proposed changes, particularly the reduction of his authority. But with the business teetering on the brink of collapse, reality superseded his pride. One additional condition, Sarah stated as they concluded. "I want a proper family business contract, drafted by independent attorneys, with all roles, responsibilities, and expectations explicitly defined. No more informal family arrangements that leave room for manipulation." Her father winced at the implied criticism, but conceded, "That is fair." 1 week later, with new agreements firmly in place and notarized, Sarah reinstated her guarantee on the loan. The bank released the frozen funds, construction resumed, and Miller's Hardware commenced its cautious ascent back from the financial brink. More significantly, her relationship with her family began its own process of reconstruction, built upon a foundation more honest and equitable than ever before. 6 months have elapsed since that pivotal meeting in Boston. The shifts in their family dynamic occasionally still feel surreal. Sarah now travels to Boston twice a month to consult on the business, her role officially acknowledged and her expertise valued rather than simply exploited. The initial visits were marked by awkwardness, with her father still grappling to treat her as a respected professional, rather than his wayward daughter. But each subsequent meeting grew easier as new patterns gradually superseded old habits. James has thrived in his redefined role, managing store design and marketing. He has reimagined the customer experience in all locations, implementing distinctive displays that have demonstrably boosted sales despite the recent financial turbulence. His artistic talents, long dismissed by their father, have become a genuine competitive advantage for the business. Her brother, Michael, remains the operational core of the company, but has matured into a more confident leader now that he has emerged from their father's shadow. He and Sarah have reached a fragile understanding that occasionally feels like the nascent stages of mutual respect. The most surprising transformation has been her mother's. After residing at her grandmother's for a month, she returned home having established clear boundaries and expectations for her marriage. She joined the business part-time in a community outreach role that has cultivated new partnerships with local schools and organizations. She and Sarah converse almost daily now, their relationship deepening beyond the careful, guarded exchanges of the past. Her father's evolution has been the slowest, yet perhaps the most meaningful. He occasionally reverts to his controlling tendencies, but now catches himself or accepts gentle redirection from others. During Sarah's most recent visit, he actually solicited her opinion on a business matter and subsequently implemented her suggestion without modification, a small miracle by their family's previous standards. The family reunion this year was a tentative, sometimes tense event, but Sarah was present, fully included. Some relatives appeared uncertain how to interact with her, following the conflicting narratives they had heard. But her Aunt Susan made a point of publicly welcoming her and commending her for helping to salvage the family business through a form of tough love. The business restructuring has progressed steadily. The third location finally opened last month, albeit with a more streamlined design that better aligns with the current financial realities. The loan remains in good standing, and while a full recovery from the crisis will likely take another year, Miller's Hardware is now on solid ground. Crucially, their family stands on new territory. not always firm, still subject to shifting and settling, but fundamentally altered. Sarah has reflected extensively on this journey during her commutes between Chicago and Boston. The painful confrontation, though traumatic at the time, proved essential for authentic healing to commence. By choosing to step away, she forced a reckoning that would otherwise never have transpired. She learned that sometimes love necessitates distance, that boundaries are not selfish, but foundational. She discovered that respect cannot be demanded, but must be earned, a responsibility shared by both parents and children. The most profound realization has been that conditional affection does not constitute genuine love. Her father's attachment, contingent upon her conformity to his vision for her life, was rooted more in control than in genuine connection. True family bonds must embrace the complete individual, not merely the parts that fit neatly into predetermined roles. Family therapy has facilitated their navigation of this new landscape. Initially suggested by James and met with resistance by her father, their monthly sessions have provided a structured environment to address decades of suppressed tensions. Her father still exhibits discomfort when emotions run high, but his consistent participation is in itself a demonstration of commitment. Last weekend marked another significant step. Sarah brought her new boyfriend Ryan to Boston to meet her family. As they entered her parents' house, she felt the familiar anxiety surface, but her mother embraced him warmly. Her brothers engaged him in genuine conversation, and her father, after an initially stiff handshake, made a visible effort to connect. Later, Sarah overheard him recounting her role in saving the business to Ryan, a note of pride discernible in his voice. The path forward still contains challenges. Old habits do not vanish overnight, and setbacks occur. However, now there exists a framework for honesty, for addressing issues directly rather than through manipulation or silence. Sarah has learned that family relationships, like all significant connections in life, necessitate mutual respect to truly thrive. Occasionally, the most profound act of love is standing firm in your truth, even when it entails temporary pain. Sarah's story offers a compelling account of reclaiming identity and establishing necessary boundaries within a complex family system. It prompts contemplation on the meaning of respect, the weight of expectations, and the courage required to forge one's own path. Her journey serves as a reminder that advocating for oneself is not an act of selfishness. It is frequently the crucial first stride towards fostering healthier relationships for everyone involved.